Hi, and welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion series. My name is Judi Glova, and today is the first expert interview that we have. And we're going to be talking to Maz Kamarudin. She is an Assistant Vice President of Field Diversity and Inclusion at Guardian Life. We're going to focus on how important it is to have awareness of our unconscious bias, as well as we're going to be focusing on some of the first steps that you can take as you're learning about diversity and inclusion, because it's a big topic. So let's get started. Maz, I'm so excited to have you here today and just giving us a little bit of background about diversity and inclusion. So please, just give me a little bit of background about who you are and how you got passionate about diversity and inclusion.
Sure. Thank you, Judi. My name again is Maz Kamarudin. I've been in the financial services industry for about 24 years with different capacity, but the last 10 years focusing on the diversity and inclusion D&I space. They created a position and I look at the job description. Wow, this is interesting, but also I was a little bit nervous about it. The reason was because there was no one before me that I can go to and ask for advice. But I flipped my mindset thinking that, you know what, this is like a plain canvas.
Well, I guess, the one question that I really want to ask you is, as a diversity and inclusion expert, what's the most important or impactful lesson, or if there's a story that you can share that can really help increase leaders' awareness about how they can improve their effectiveness around diversity and inclusion? What comes to mind for you?
Sure. I think what I have in mind, it might be a little bit different than what most people will have. To answer your question, I would say we must crawl before we walk and walk before we run. So what I meant by that is before we even think of putting together a business case for diversity and inclusion, before all those, we need to tackle two basic steps, in my opinion. Once we master these steps, I think we can do D&I with very clear for both ourselves and also with for people that we're working with or who we're trying to attract. So two steps. Step one is unconscious bias. We must address this. But first, what's unconscious bias, right? So it is actually a stereotype about certain groups of people that individuals forms outside of the conscious awareness. So simple English, it is an automatic mental shortcut used to process information and make decision very quickly. So that's unconscious bias. I give an example. Hey, Judi, I am coming to your dinner party with a plus one. He is a black doctor. So that's unconscious bias. You don't have to say the black doctor, he's a doctor. Or we're looking at similar resumes, but we are more attracted to like certain gender. Or we are biased toward less white sounding names. So that's our unconscious bias, and we're sometimes not aware of that, right? So how do we control or overcome these biases, right? First, awareness. That's the first step. Second, look at our biases. What are the biases that we need to address? And if we are with a team, what are the team biases? And then discuss about it, like how do we overcome or go about this or control it? And then set D&I goals. This one is very important, and you have to be intentional. For example, this year 50% of our hires will be diverse. So you have to be intentional. So after you set the goal, you need to share the goals, not only with your recruiting people or your agency leaders. You have to share it with your staff, your administrative staff, your marketing person, your IT person, I don't know, your janitor. Just share it so everybody knows the culture, everybody knows what's the goal, right? And then if needed, do a D&I training, maybe get somebody from, external to help you with the D&I training. So that's step one, unconscious bias. You have to do that.
So let me just kind of summarize what I think I heard you say. So step one is really about being mindful and intentionally being mindful to be able to catch ourselves when we have those unconscious biases and be willing to have those tough conversations.
Yes.
So it's mindful, having tough conversations, being committed to that, and being very intentional even with your commitment. It's like
Very.
what it's being very transparent about that. So did I get that
Yes.
right?
Yes, 100%. Yes, yes.
Great.
Intentional. So that's step one.
That's
And
step one.
and step two, the last step, step two, to be culturally competent. The ability to interact effectively with diverse cultures. Easy for some people. For example, some people are naturally friendly and they're always curious about other people, about culture and custom. So it's easy for them to learn. But not to some people. They are afraid that they're going to offend someone if asking the wrong question, saying or doing the wrong thing. So they don't want to perceive as lacking sensitivity. But not to worry, because being culturally competent can be learned. So
Right.
it's not impossible. It can be learned. For example, being aware of our own world view,
Mhm.
develop positive attitudes toward cultural differences, gaining knowledge of different cultures by traveling, reading. There's a lot of ways of doing that, and just developing skills of communication and interaction across cultures. So in summary, those, to me, my opinion, those are the two steps that we have to I guess master, if not master, know first, to control and overcome a unconscious bias, and
Mhm.
to be culturally competent. And then after that, I think we can bring in, like, what is the business case for diversity and inclusion. But
Right.
those two basic things that we need to tackle first.
So here's what's so amazing to me is, and again, this is because my natural inclination is to be curious and to ask questions. And it's always curious to me how people think that they can be offensive by being curious and wanting, like, to seek to understand. I think about
Yeah.
the Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of his effective habits was seek first to understand. It's like
Right.
being curious. How can that, I mean, to me, again, my personal bias, if you will, is always like, well, how could being curious be offensive if it's truly coming
Yeah.
from an authentic curiosity of, like, wow, let me understand who you are. It almost, to
Mm-hmm.
me, creates the bridge. But how common it is for people to feel like, oh, if it's different and it's strange, or it's strange
Yeah.
to me, then how can I possibly ask about it, because that'll make that person feel uncomfortable, when actually they're the ones that
Uncomfortable.
are
Yeah.
feeling uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. And then sometimes the person that will ask also, they might be uncomfortable as well, because maybe the nature of their behavior, maybe they uh, don't want to share information about themselves. But so I got a lot of this, where are you from? And it depends on, which is fine to me, it's fine, or maybe curious, the way that they ask, right? Where are you from? So sometimes it's like, originally, or yeah, sometimes I say, oh, I'm from New York. And then when they say, where are you, this is another thing also. When they say, where are you really from, that is also actually a form of micro inequities. It's I can understand people sometimes sensitive, and afraid to ask, because am I asking the wrong thing? But for me, people ask, where are you from? I'm okay with that, because they're probably curious, seeing what they see and maybe the accent and everything. Yeah. But some people will take it like, why do you want to know? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is there. You're right. There is an art in asking the question and making sure that the question is truly like, I'm
Yeah.
curious about,
Yeah.
I'm curious about your background,
Right.
or I mean, well, let me ask you this. So if I was to ask a question like, oh, where is your lovely accent from? Is
Yeah.
that considered a micro inequity?
Uh, It depends, but to me it's not. But I think that's a good way of asking, instead of like just ask, right? Where are you from? Sometimes what I usually do for myself, and also advise our colleagues and friends, open up about yourself first. I was like, oh, I'm from Malaysia. Where are you from? Because I see a detect a little bit of accent. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
from New York City. Where are you from? So talk about yourself first, and then they feel comfortable, like, oh, she just want to ask because She
Mm-hmm.
might think like I'm from the same, area.
Mm-hmm.
But I also always tell my advisor that if you don't know, if you're not sure, it's okay to ask. Don't, you know, just say things because people can see through that. Mostly questions on the LGBTQ community. So they don't know how to ask, they don't know how to address the person. Is that a spouse? Is that a partner? If you don't know, I said it's better to ask. Ask like, how do I refer to you? They will be happy to answer the question.
Right, because we have to mention that, diversity and inclusion is not just race. It
Nope,
includes all different kinds of
correct.
diversity, and it's a huge topic. I mean, what we're trying to talk about today is just like taking, like you said before, it's like you got to crawl before you walk. And it's
Right.
like this is just like, how can we even start to have the conversation, and how can we start to feel comfortable about it?
Yes, yes. And then again, if we're not sure, asking is okay. But we all learn from that, right? And asking, like you said, that's 10,000 ways of asking the questions without offending someone. But this is all can be learned. And they all can be learned, yeah. Readings, blogs, and asking people from diverse background. And I agree with you as well. Diversity doesn't mean what you see physically, not just gender and skin color. It is everything. It's your experience, your age, your thought process. It is everybody is included.
Absolutely. Well, again, I think this is just so valuable. I'm so honored to have you here and just giving us, again, your expert experience and being able to articulate it in such a way that is so actionable and easy to understand. I just really appreciate that, because to me, having practical tools to give people really provides value. Because if you're new to the topic, if you're new about having conversations about it, it's great to have the basics of being able to understand what it is and how to approach it, because we all want to get better. And my motto right now is I can do better, and I like to be able to do a little bit better every day. So with that, Maz, thank you so much. I am so grateful, and I'm grateful to your organization for giving us this opportunity for you to talk today. Thank you
Great.
so
Thank you so much. Thank you, Judy, for the opportunity. Thank you.
much. Okay, bye for now.
Bye bye.